There is a moment that every dog owner knows. You say something to your dog, a word, a sentence, a question asked out of habit, and their head tilts slowly to one side. One ear rises slightly, the eyes focus on your face with a deliberateness that feels almost impossible to dismiss. And you feel, in that quiet fraction of a second, that they are genuinely trying to understand what you just said. You are right. And a study published in 2021 has provided the most detailed and credible scientific explanation yet for what is happening in that moment, and why it means something far more significant than the internet meme it became. Welcome to Hidden Paw Signals. Before we go any further, I want to be clear about something I say at the start of every episode. Everything you are about to hear comes from my own personal journey of reading, studying, and trying to understand the science behind dog behavior. I am not a veterinarian, a scientist, or a certified animal behaviorist. This is one person's process of learning from published research, shared with you because the findings genuinely changed how I see my dog. It is educational content, offered in that spirit, and it is not veterinary or medical advice of any kind. If you want to understand what is happening in the mind of your dog, subscribe now, because that is what this channel is entirely about. The head tilt has been observed, photographed, and celebrated by dog owners for as long as people have been paying attention to dogs. But until relatively recently, it was treated more as an endearing quirk than as a subject of serious scientific inquiry. The explanation that circulated most widely was simple. Dogs tilt their heads to better localize sound, adjusting the position of their ears to pinpoint the direction and distance of a noise. This explanation is not wrong, but it is incomplete, and the more interesting layer of what the head tilt represents was hiding inside a research project that almost did not happen. Researchers at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest, one of the most respected centers for canine cognitive research in the world, led by scientist Shani Dror and her colleagues, published a study in the journal Animal Cognition in 2021 that set out to investigate whether the head tilt in dogs was a generic response to any interesting sound, or whether it was something more cognitively specific. To do this, they worked with a category of dogs they called gifted word learners, dogs that had demonstrated the ability to learn and reliably retrieve objects by their specific names, something the overwhelming majority of dogs cannot do. The question they were asking was whether these cognitively exceptional dogs would show different head-tilting behavior when asked to retrieve a specific named toy, compared to when they were given a generic command. What Shani Dror and her team found was striking. The gifted word learner dogs tilted their heads significantly more often when they were asked to retrieve a specific named toy than when they received an ordinary command. Typical dogs in the same experiment, those without the extraordinary word learning capacity, showed no significant head tilting in either condition. The conclusion was not that head tilting is reserved for gifted dogs, it was that head tilting, in those moments, reflects active mental processing of meaningful verbal information. The dogs that were genuinely trying to match a spoken word to an object in their memory were the dogs whose heads tilted. The tilt was not a cute accident, it was a visible expression of cognitive effort. This finding reshapes how we should interpret those moments when our dogs tilt their heads at us. When you speak to your dog and their head tilts, the most scientifically supported interpretation is now that they are actively processing what you said, checking it against what they know, searching for meaning in the sound. The tilt is their brain working. It is not performance. It is not a trained response seeking a reward. It is the physical manifestation of a cognitive engagement that your words triggered, which means that when your dog tilts their head while you talk to them, they are, in the most literal, measurable sense, listening. There is an earlier body of work that adds a complementary dimension to what Shani Dror and her colleagues discovered.
Psychologist Stanley Coren, whose decades of research into dog cognition are among the most widely cited in popular science, proposed in 2013, through data collected from a survey of dog owners, that the head tilt may also serve a visual function. Coren noted that a dog's muzzle obstructs a significant portion of their lower visual field, particularly when they are trying to read a human face at close range. Tilting the head to one side moves the muzzle out of the line of sight and allows the dog a clearer view of the lower half of the human face, where the mouth is and where many of the most emotionally informative facial cues originate. Coren's survey data showed that dogs with longer muzzles tilted their heads more frequently than flat-faced breeds, whose shorter muzzles created less visual obstruction. The two explanations, cognitive processing and visual optimization, are not competing. They are complementary layers of the same behavior. Before we continue, I want to pause for something important. As I always say on this channel, what you are hearing is the result of one person's exploration of published research. It is not veterinary advice. It is not a substitute for professional evaluation of your dog. If your dog shows any neurological symptom that looks like a head tilt that is persistent, involuntary, or accompanied by loss of balance, circling, or disorientation, please contact your local veterinarian immediately. A sudden, unexplained head tilt that is not the curious, attentive tilt we are discussing today can be a sign of a vestibular disorder or other medical condition that requires urgent professional care. Please do not use an educational video as a reason to delay that conversation. The acoustic dimension of the head tilt is also worth understanding in more depth than the simple ear positioning explanation usually receives. Dogs have a far more sophisticated auditory system than humans in several respects. They can hear frequencies roughly twice as high as the upper limit of human hearing. They can independently move each ear, rotating them toward a sound source with a precision that human ears cannot match. And they are remarkably sensitive to the prosodic qualities of speech, the rises and falls in pitch, the rhythmic patterns, the emotional coloring in tone that carry meaning alongside the literal content of words. When a dog tilts their head, they are not simply turning an ear toward you. They are repositioning a complex, mobile, directionally sensitive receptor to optimize the collection of a specific kind of acoustic information. The precision of that adjustment tells you something about how seriously their brain is taking what you are saying. What the 2021 research by Shani Draror and her colleagues also opened up is a broader question about language processing in dogs. The gifted word learner dogs in the study had, through their exceptional ability, made visible something that may be occurring at a lesser degree in all dogs with strong bonds to their people. The processing of a familiar person's speech is a different cognitive event for a dog than the processing of random noise. The words you use most often with your dog, your name for them, the words that predict walks or food or play, but also the quieter words you use in daily conversation are not all equivalent background noise to your dog. Some of them land. Some of them are processed with the kind of effort that produces a visible head tilt, and now we have a scientific framework for why. There is something in this research that I find quietly moving about the relationship between dogs and the people who talk to them. Most of us talk to our dogs constantly. We narrate our days to them. We ask them questions we know they cannot answer in words. We tell them things we might not say to another person. And the research suggests that while the full semantic content of that speech is beyond what most dogs can process, something else is happening. They are reading the emotion in your voice. They are tracking the familiar patterns in your words. They are, in the moments that matter most to them, tilting their heads and working to understand you. The conversation you thought was one-sided has always had two participants. The way this should change how you interact with your dog is subtle but meaningful. The head tilt is a signal that your dog is engaged, that the words you are using are worth processing, that their brain has identified something in what you said as potentially meaningful. When you see it, you are not being charmed, you are being shown something real about what is happening in their mind. Respond to it, complete the communication, use the words they know, give the gesture or action that follows the word they were listening for. You are not just rewarding acute behavior, you are participating in a cognitive exchange that your dog is taking seriously. One more thing worth noting about what this research reveals about dogs more broadly: the existence of gifted word learner dogs, dogs like Chaser, the border collie, who learned over 1,000 object names, or the dogs in the Budapest study, tells us that the cognitive architecture for language-like processing exists in the dog brain, even if most dogs never develop it to that degree. The capacity is there. What differs is the opportunity, the motivation, the environment, and possibly the individual variation in cognitive ability. Your dog may never learn 100 toy names, but the brain they are using when they tilt their head to your voice is the same kind of brain that, under the right conditions, produces that capacity. They are working with real cognitive tools when they listen to you. As I always want to make clear at the end of our time together, everything shared here is part of my personal learning process and is offered purely for education and reflection. It is not professional veterinary or behavioral advice. If you have any concerns about your dog's behavior, health, or cognition, please consult a qualified veterinarian who knows your individual dog. No video, however well researched, can replace that relationship and that professional knowledge. If the head tilt will never look the same to you after today, share this video with one person whose dog does it and who has never known the science behind it. Leave a comment below. What word makes your dog tilt their head most reliably? I want to know, and I read every single comment. Subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you on the next Hidden Paw Signals. The voice and visuals in this video were created using artificial intelligence. Thank you for watching Hidden Paw Signals.